Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to my talk. So this will be about my adventures marketing an IDE as a developer. So let's get this started. So I'm Sopot. I'm a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering. And so before you think, what is this guy doing, putting his CV in his school on the screen there? So there is a reason for that. I am a technical person. I was educated as an engineer and as a developer in the Technical University of Tirana, and I've worked as a developer for about 8 years, so from 2010 to 2018, more or less. I'm a committer in a couple of Eclipse projects. That's why I'm here. And as a job, I'm part of a team at Red Hat that does stuff on the IDE as a manager. So um, why this guy in the first place? Like, so why me? I'm a developer like anyone else. So why listen to me? The reason is that I came up with this Twitter thing and it has gone pretty well. So this is a chart you see that I picked from the September 1st to more or less today. Well, not today, but a couple of days ago when I took the screenshot. So you can see there, this is from the Twitter analytics, which are pretty good analytics. And it says there that there have been 1 million impressions over a 50-day period. So this is what we get right now with a Twitter account. Every month, month and a half, we get around 1 million impressions. And impressions is defined here by Twitter. This is not very visible, but yeah, this is September 1st until October the 20th something. So impressions here are defined as the number of times the user saw the tweet. So this is not unique users looking at the tweet, but the number of times the users saw the tweet, which in marketing is more or less a good metric, because just that factor of repetition, showing something multiple times, that's also a major factor into getting anything done. So yeah, this is the account that I work with to do the marketing of it. So a detail here is that this is not my day job. My day job is something else. So this is something that I do on my spare time, and that's around half an hour to 1 hour per day, mainly at lunchtime. I produce 2 or 3 tweets per day. One of them is a real proper tip, or let's say a, a showing of a feature of the IDE on Twitter, and that is sort of the core one. But then we do also stuff that I will show you, like puzzles and some funny pictures, which really help with the attachment to the account. So okay, so enough selling it. Like how did we get to this state where we get 1 million times pairs of eyes looking at our stuff every month and a half or so? So in order to do that, I thought about this, how I can do this the shortest way possible. So we will get a bit philosophical in it. I know it's too early in the morning, but we'll get through it. Just 1 minute of that. So very quickly, this is the temple of Apollo at Delphi, somewhere in Greece. And basically Apollo was one of the big guys in the Olympus. So in this temple there was this lady called the Oracle of Delphi, and if you wanted to get any sort of guidance for your life, you had to go there. And she was pretty cryptic, so there was an inscription in the entrance of the temple that said that if you, well, the message was basically, if you really want to make sense of anything that the lady said, you have to know yourself. So that's basically, well, originally this is in English, it's know thyself, but this was awkward enough to get into Shakespeare here. So it's know yourself is the message that you got there if you really wanted to make sense of anything that happened in the of anything that the oracle told you. So we'll get back to this and I'll explain to you how this is related. But so through this, I started doing stuff like this, for example. This is something that really happened to me in a sense. So my technical lead told me, like, I know you have done something similar to what I'm doing now. So how about you go and check what you did a long time ago? So I went there, I opened my old workspaces, and basically what I saw was my old code, really old code, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. So this is how I felt. I looked at the code looked at me. and I thought like, what the hell? Did I write this kind of code back at those days? So I put this out, and you can see, well, there's the sun here, but this is basically pretty good numbers. So we got really huge, good reception from the developers that said, hey, this is more or less how I feel about my old code too. So there was this connection between what we put there and the developers, this affinity, which was pretty important to see. Another case is documentation. Everywhere here, everybody starts something. They start and they say, well, we have to do documentation at the second point in time. And this is how I felt myself. You give me some code to write, I can do it 3 hours, 4 hours, non-stop. I am, sorry, can you close the curtains a bit? Thank you. And yeah, I can do coding 4 hours. I even forget I have to get lunch or something, but ask me to do some documentation of it. This is how I feel after 5 minutes. And we put it out there, and again, we got a pretty good reception. So the numbers that you see here, the 88 retweets and 239 likes, these are numbers that we don't even get to when we do the release announcement. So if we say, there's a new release, we get something like 60, 70, and 100, 150 likes, just as a for you to get the feeling of how popular this stuff is. And the reason why it is popular is because they can relate to the content. They think, behind this handle there is a person that really knows us and is one of us, rather than what they're used to thinking of marketing with their classical tricks and someone in a suit and that kind of stuff. So, and I think I have another example. Yes, and this one, this wasn't as popular as the ones before in terms of retweet, but this got huge number of replies, telling you like, oh yeah, I felt it some, and I felt this like 3 hours, 3 years ago or 4 years ago or more. We had this release. I wanted to change something in the test. The release was the next day. I broke everything. I broke the build, and I was looking, like listening to my colleagues behind me and saying, the build failed. What happened? I don't know. Let's look at the logs. And when they were looking at the logs, this is how I felt, basically. So, and I put this out there, and this kind of stuff gets some real good attention. Now, you might think this is not real marketing in the sense that you're not showing stuff. So you're not showing this is cool stuff from the IDE, but this makes a huge difference, I think. So since we started doing these, our numbers have gone up, not just for these, but also for any subsequent real tip that we show or real content that we show from the account. And the main takeaway of this bit is that if you make developers feel like they can relate to what you're telling them, and everything subsequent to that you show in the IDE or anything that you want to tell them or convince them of, it's made much, much easier because they know that you're one of them rather than someone that has a job of selling you something on a salesman style. Another thing we do, which has quite a lot of positive influence, is this kind of stuff. So puzzle, like, what is the result here? What's the S? Now, I don't really care what's the S in this context, of course, but what I know is more or less that most of the developers in this room, they cannot ignore this kind of questions. They automatically start thinking. Like, maybe they won't say it. Maybe that's how I also feel sometimes. I just won't say it. Maybe I'm afraid I'll get it wrong in front of everyone or stuff like that. But you start thinking about it. You get engaged. It's difficult to ignore this stuff. And these are almost as popular as the previous stuff, and sometimes even more popular, because the Java account likes to retweet them, and that means 400,000 developers. So, yeah. So why this kind of stuff? I think this rule of being it hard to make developers shut up about what they think they know, or what they know about. So you can talk to them about many things, and sometimes they're not that talkative. But if the discussion goes into a direction in which they feel that they have a certain expertise on it, this is when you get them really engaged, and it's very difficult to make them stop talking about it and feeling. So these ones, in terms of replies, which usually the people that do this stuff for a living, think that the replies are the most useful ones for any sort of campaign like this. And then there is the retweets, and then there is the likes in terms of importance. Because when you do a reply, it shows up also into the other followers. So the followers of the guy that replied. So it has this spreading effect, which is nice. And Twitter in its algorithms shows it as a. So now they have changed. They don't do just the latest tweets, but they do also the top tweets. And if there are many replies, this kind of content shows up pretty well in their algorithm. So in terms of replies, this stuff is sort of the best. It can easily go 180 or 200 replies even in some cases, which is pretty big. So developers like to express this. They see it. What I've noticed with this stuff is that initially there is this pause, so people are a bit, let's say, reluctant to be the first to commit to the answer. But then once it starts, it floods, basically. Everyone wants to have their say. And again, this is something that keeps them really engaged. They're starting to expect it now. As soon as I put it there, even before Twitter starts to display it, I can tell that there are people just waiting for it, because I do it more or less at the same time. So it builds a kind of a followership. And before it even lands on Twitter, you can see people reacting and liking, because it's more like news at 3 or something, because it's this at the same time, so they expect it there. So that really helps. This is the stage I'm going to talk about how I do the real tips in itself as a tip. So this is something about how you need to really be visual with developers as compared to just writing stuff. So this is a simple thing we showed with Docker, having Eclipse run on Broadway, which is a GTK backend on the web. And you can see there, since it's a GIF, it's only 256 colors. So this is basically Eclipse running on the web. It's a bit cut out because of resolution, but you get the idea. So the story of this is that this is work done for Mikael Istria, which is one of the guys in my team. And he shared more or less the same content, but in a text form. In a tweet, he said, hey, why don't you do Docker pull and Docker run? And I retweeted that account, that content from the account. So I put it out to all of the followers that are here. But it got something like, I think, 15 retweets or something. And then the next day, I tried the same. It's basically the same thing that I showed, but I showed it like this, with a GIF ready right there for developers to see how to do it specifically in all the details, because that matters. How you do Docker run, how you do Docker pull, and how you do this bit. Right click there, open link. Just show it to them in all the details. And then this got, of course, way better feedback. And you have all these people saying, oh, I tried this with mine and it worked like this. And this is Mikael chasing you, basically. So it got a lot of. There was this guy that didn't really like Eclipse on the web, but so you have because you have to understand, we put this stuff in front of around 14,000 people, 14,000 developers, and out of them there is always someone that will try something nice with it. So I have another example, I think, to make. Yeah, this is also in a similar vein. This is also coming from me myself as a developer, that I sometimes had this habit of creating local variables for everything. I don't know why, but every time I did that, sometimes it got just too much, and then this is what I write in here. So if you ever feel like you're over creating your local variables, then this is how you can fix it with the inlining, basically. If you don't know, there's a way to inline the variables. So from all of these, in the end, you basically have no local variable in the end. But the point, rather than showing you the tips here, because I did this last year, the point is that this third hint that I have is that it is much, much more effective to do these things visually rather than talking about them. I can assure you, I could have described this into 280 characters, this GIF, and tell you what to do and how to do it, but it wouldn't be as, it wouldn't even have half the reactions that are here, and also with replies and whatever's coming from here. So I can show you also the account from here if I'm on this one. Yes. Yeah, so this is what we have in terms of followers. One thing that I forgot to mention is all the numbers that we have here are organic. We have uh, spent $0 on this. This is like no advertisement, no paid followership, nothing like that. Because, as I said, this is a sort of a pet thing for me, not something that it's my livelihood day job, so that I'll go so deep in it. But this is all real, genuine followership that like this kind of things. So this is another thing that I wanted to mention. Sometimes I link these two. I think if you've ever developed Eclipse, you've always been here. It's for sure you've been here. You have list in your imports. You want to import it. It proposes you both the AWT list and the Java util list. 99.99% of the cases you have wanted the util list. You don't really care about the AWT. I mean, for that one guy or girl that needed AWT, whatever, they can type it once in 5 years. But the point is that we link them. So the goal here was to show the tip to the right, that you can filter them out. You can do the type filters. But what we do is show them the problem first and the solution next. I figured this is also a much better way to communicate to developers. If you have something great to show to them and it solves some stuff, it's much easier to start the other way around, to start by talking about the frustrations, like what the issue is and how it frustrates everybody. And then once you get the attention with this, then you go and tell them, yeah. So this is a Twitter thread. So you can see it says replying to Eclipse Java IDE. It's basically Twitter nicely threads these two. So you put this first, and then you put the second one below that. And you usually get more than what you would have taken if you put that one, the one on the right, individually. So before before I go to what I plan to do next, I just wanted to mention that all of these, what I've showed, it goes back to that thing that I showed in the beginning with the temple of Oracle of Apollo at Delphi. So it's basically the know yourself thing. All that I've done here was basically me and my own self thinking back of how I felt about things and how I developed into my developmental stages as a developer. So some honest introspection of how you feel when you do whatever you do at work is, I think, the secret sauce to the millions of impressions that you can take with half an hour per day of work producing content. Now, along these lines, so this is pretty stable now, as you've seen. So I have these 14,000 people here. That what I'm planning to do now is, for example, my team, as I mentioned, Alex, Mikael, Istria, and some other Eclipse people. What we do is, like, 99% of our work is public in the office. Well, we don't have an office because we work from home, but if I put any of you on the shoulder of Mikael Istria working all day, if you only get to see the Eclipse IDE, that's fine. His work is all public. So we're going to use that, and what I plan to do with that is who knows Twitch here? Twitch, the live streaming? Okay, so what we're going to do is basically live stream the Eclipse developers fixing bugs. So Mikael will tell me on Monday that, hey, Sopot, I plan to fix this UI bug on Tuesday around 10 a.m. And I'll showcase this into the Twitter account and say, hey, if you want to see this guy fixing the bugs, you can tune in and he'll fix it live and you'll look at it. And what, in my experience of trying to convince developers to contribute, you tell them, they get all motivated, and they go home in the evening, they start fixing some things, and they get stuck somewhere. It might be something really small, It might be something really big, but they get stuck somewhere. And they usually, for many, many reasons, they don't follow up. Maybe they're afraid of asking a stupid question. Maybe they're afraid of asking too many questions. Maybe they're afraid of not asking the right question. Or maybe they're afraid of this, this, and that. But the end result, whatever, for whatever reason, is that they just leave it at that. So what we're planning to do here will basically pull all of these people out of their, let's say, and improve their confidence, because if they're stuck, for example, on how to use Garrett, and they will have a chance to see Mika Listri doing it, who has been doing Eclipse for 10 years, or Alex, or Napur, or Lars Vogel. They will see them fix the bugs. And when they see them fix the bugs, they'll have the confidence because, oh, this is how it's done. This is how my bit. And they don't have to be proactive about it or anything. They just need to join. I'll show this on Periscope, which is the live thing of Twitter, but this can be easily spread to multiple platforms if you want to do it, Facebook Live, and even Twitch itself. There are many people that do open source in Twitch, so this is not the first thing. But the point here is that, again, with some introspection of how I felt times ago when I started contributing, when I started to go into complex things, I had many questions, but you cannot really ask 20 questions to a person, and you're really a beginner, so these questions look really simple. So you're thinking, I'll just figure it out myself and spend 10 more days looking at it and the effort there. But I think this would go a long way to improve both the followership of the account, of course, but then also give people a chance to contribute back. Because when you see, and even for people that are already very experienced, if they want to see the ones that are contributors or committers, that will help them out quite a lot. Even for testing, I used to fix stuff. There was always someone that found a bug, maybe Danny or someone else, and I just want to see them how they test the thing. Because I tested for 2 hours, I didn't see anything. You put the patch up, there's a bug, and you want to see what this more experienced than you committer does the testing, does the everything. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this is all public work, so there is no sort of confidentiality issues there. So don't look at my Eclipse, don't look at my bugs. There's nothing there. So this is what I plan on doing there. And again, this is coming back to, I did this slide before, but this is coming back to all this. Whenever, I think, since so let me rephrase, if you are not a developer, it is very difficult to do this stuff. So if you're not in the trade, let's say, or you are educated as something else, as a marketing person, as a salesperson or whatever, you cannot do this stuff because you have not been through this developmental path that can make you relate to the developers. So I think if anyone wants to do any sort of proper reaching out in mass to developers, I think this bit of starting from your own self as a developer, even though developers, of course, are different. There are good developers, great developers, but there is a big trunk of common things and common experiences that all developers have and go through, especially if they use the same tooling. So let's say exploiting that experience is the best way to do it. Okay. Let me see okay. So I think I'm more or less done from my side. And questions? There don't seem to be any questions, so we're completely done then. Thank you.